Welcome back to the First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here on the eve of the NBA Finals. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, as always, Wayne Spooney and Jake Eisenberg. And a warm welcome back to a guest whose regular appearances on the show have been becoming somewhat of a good luck charm for the Celtics from Barstool Sports, Dan Greenberg. How are we doing, Greenie?
Listen, I told you guys, as long as they're winning, it's too important of a playoff run. I'm going to bully my way onto this show.
Hell yes.
As far as I'm concerned, this is as responsible as anything we've seen for this run. So, listen,
give us a ring.
Even if you have someone booked, I'm bullying my way in.
That's right. And I would have it no other way. It's time. Before we were hopped on, we were asked, me and Ben were talking about how we're doing, and we were like, bad. And then we told Greenie that we were doing bad, and he's like, yeah, I'm also doing bad. Spoony, how are you doing?
Terrible, man. I have so far not cracked a beer. It's been very difficult. I'm going to save that for tomorrow, but I don't know how I'm going to sleep tonight.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. And I'm like, look at my circles. Like, I'm already been sleep deprived. I don't know if you saw, I tweeted out, I opened this up for the first time.
Yeah. 2008.
So I'm firing that up. I'm ready for the all-nighter.
Hell yes. Yeah, I've got that loaded on YouTube. I haven't watched it yet, like the all-in access. I've been having various dreams every night about the finals. It was mostly KP related, and then that kind of was slightly assuaged. But like, I always wake up from the nightmare, and I'm like, I hope that it's like 5 or 6 a.m. because it's close to getting up time. But last night I wake up from my Derek Lively nightmare, and I check my watch. I'm like, please be, and it's like 1:30. I'm like, I've been asleep for 3 hours. I've got so much more attempted sleep to go, dude. Leave me alone. So it's tough.
But it's a blessing and it's a curse, right? It's like, it's a privilege to have these type of nerves, but more so of 2020, like 2022 was nerves. This is a matzo ball I don't think I've ever overcome yet in my life. So we'll see.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Ben. No, this is really stupid. So I'm sorry that we're now like putting me on the. I was gonna say I read before bed every night, and I put my book down, and then I started thinking about guarding Luka pick and rolls, and it was like 10:30, and I checked my phone, and it was 11:15. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing to myself? Like, just go to sleep, dude.
Locked in. That's awesome. Greenie, you got a new piece up on Barstool where you talk about how, like, beyond the obvious importance of a title to the actual team, it actually carries a lot of significance for a whole generation of Celtics fans, like fans of our age, essentially, which I thought was a really cool angle. How would you describe your feelings towards Game 1, at least? Obviously, it's going to be a long series, but Game 1, do you think they can get it? And how are you? I asked this, like, trying not to sound melodramatic, but we obviously all feel this way. Like, how are you mentally preparing for that first game?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we couldn't all be like Spoony and seeing the Bill Russell Celtics. So we're
me and Ben are the same age.
I know. It's one of those things where if you're around my age, mid to late 30s, we have one title in our entire lives that we've seen with our own eyes. And that first one was, you got over the hump, and I put it in the blog, you're in the club now, right? Like now you're part of, growing up, having to listen to all the greats and what that was like. It was a fantasy, the majority of my entire life. So this time around, it's like, it's for this era. So for the Tatum and Brown core, for the belief in them as a process, and for any fan that was young and couldn't really appreciate or understand what 2008 was, this is your moment. This is your time to be stamped in Celtics history. We have two guys where you could make the case, this is their jersey retirement. Like, this is it. You win this, you're in the rafters forever. You're in Celtics lore forever. So it brings you to Game 1. I'm pretty sure, and I can't remember because my brain is just mush, but Dallas has lost the majority of their Game 1s, right? Wasn't the Western Conference Finals like the one aberration of that? They're very much a fill you out type of team. So my heart says, history says the Celtics show up for Game 1s and the Mavs drop Game 1s. The finals, I think, brings a different level of nerves because you start a game 1-for-7, we're all clenching our butts for the entire remaining, portion of that game. I just think, it's more likely they come out just like we saw. I don't know if it was the Pacers. Again, my brain is mush, but like this is where they're going to punch first. The crowd's going to go nuts. They're going to make an early three. I'm much more confident in game ones than I think we all would be in game two, because once you see the film, it's now about who can make the adjustments quicker. What did you try leading into the series in game one that didn't work that you're not going to try again? So you're not going to be able to be beat the same way. So I'm trying to do my thing. I'm respecting the opponent. I'm respecting the basketball gods. But I think game one is the one where it's like, all right, we've all been off for 9 days. Like, this is their chance to just let out that anxiety, that frustration. And I think you're going to see them play the best they've played all playoffs.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, it was Indy where we started game one, I think, with that 12-0 burst.
Yeah, just like an annihilation right from the jump.
We're nailing them. Like, we've actually had the most practice. I've been saying, like, we have reps with the time off from end of the regular season to round 1 to round 2 to round 3. So we are practiced in the art of weaponizing our time off so far. And so I believe we'll get into belief rankings and feelings as the pod goes along. But yeah.
How have you guys felt about like all the over analysis of this series in the last week or so? Like, Greeny, have you been listening and consuming every piece of content, every podcast? I've sort of found myself tapering off. Like, I can't keep doing it. But how have you sort of managed that overload of content?
So I started this layoff breaking my own personal rule. I ate the trash. I was falling victim to the perks of the world, the Nick Wrights of the world. I just, I knew it was coming and I knew I should stay away from it. But like when you're off for 9-10 days, so I allowed myself to be triggered. I also tried to find, outlets that actually talked basketball. Like, I don't know if you guys have watched the LeBron and Redick Mind the Game episode today, but like that cleansed my palate of like, okay, let's actually talk about real basketball stuff. Let's not do all the ESPN. Oh, was Tatum smiling enough during the ceremony? All that bullshit has been, sort of taken out of my system. But it's still been brutal. I mean, it's just like the only thing that is going to scratch this itch is actually seeing them play. There's no substitute for it. I mean, there's First to the Floors that you could listen to, but it's one of those things where we're all just trying to pass the time until the real thing is here.
Yeah, I can't stop. I'm just a simple, smooth-brained.
I saw you get into it. What was it with? Was it Seth Parthro? I saw you.
Yeah. Of the people on this podcast, I will definitely. I'm closer to Greeny than some other guys. Like I've gone at Nathan Marzion and the Bucks Twitter guys. Like I'm a weak man as well. Like I can't help myself, dude. Like because you've been captaining the Celtics aren't allowed to lose games thing, and then it turned into the Celtics aren't even allowed to win games certain ways now either. And so
my favorite is the Celtics can't win clutch games, but they're also not allowed to have clutch games. Right. That they can't. So it's quite the pickle of it's like you want them to answer that question, but they're not allowed to be in a situation that gives them the opportunity to. It's kind of a pretzel.
They can't win. There's no winning for this team, even when they win. It's impossible.
Well, there's one way.
They can't. Well, right, exactly. But even that, people are going to be like, asterisk, they didn't. Everybody was hurt, blah, 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 all that bullshit. I don't care about it, but it's going to happen for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so, okay, the question on everybody's mind going into this week was Porzingis. And this is still the best actual video I think we have of him on the court, which I've slowed down here.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
So that was a video they posted the day of practice where they said that was the first time we found out Porzingis did 5-on-5, and Joe said it was a moderate practice, and then they just cut us off like heroin addicts cold turkey, and then didn't do any media availability for 2 days. after he told us that we're going to do the vigorous practices. So we have no footage of the vigorous practices that I've seen personally, but that's from 3 days ago. Obviously, Tony Dobbins isn't actually doing anything, but, you know, I'm going to throw it to you guys. Well, Greeny, what percentage would you put Porzingis at? Now you've seen that video, all the comments. Thoughts?
I would say I look at it two ways. The optimistic, Kool-Aid infused, injury gods throw me a bone angle is it was really a light grade 1 sprain, and he's been fine this whole time. And they just said, we're putting you in bubble wrap. We'll see you in the finals. You know, God bless you. The more realistic angle is, and what I'm fearful of, the game's going to start, and it's going to be just like when we saw OG in Anunoby in that game 7, and he couldn't even run. And you know right away, this isn't it. He's not ready. You can't even play him. Just because, if he's making it through these scrimmages fine, you would think that it might be a little bit better than that. But I don't know. I'm like we said before, I'm still waiting on KG's knee to be all right. I'm still waiting on Shaq to come back. I can't fully trust it until I see it with my own eyes. And even then, once we see it, you have to understand no game action for 5.5 weeks. Even if his calf is healthy, the wind factor becomes an issue. And, you know, will his gravity be enough if he's not making his threes and just having to guard him? That might be all it takes. But I'm very nervous for the first up and down that we're going to see him, and it's not going to be to the level it needs to be.
Ben, I want to know your percentage so bad. I need to hear it.
I am all over the place. I think, I don't know, 80%. He's had how long to recover? Almost 40 days? Or
5.5 weeks. Yeah, 5.5 weeks.
But it really, unfortunately for me, what it comes back to is we still don't know anything. Basically since day 1 of the injury, there's been these press releases, these reports from Shams and whoever about potential likelihood for him to come back at whatever game during whatever series. And it's a lot of words, just like what I'm saying right now. It's a lot of words without really saying anything at all. And we still don't really know the depth, the severity of the injury, what grade it was, what the actual timeline would be in the scope of a regular season. You take what you can get. So there was that report that he might come back in game 4. That has to have leaked from somewhere if it's Woj tweeting that out. So for me, there's information somewhere to suggest that he could have come back earlier if need be. As far as percentage-wise, it can't be 100%. If he had been at 100% for some period of time, he probably would have come back already. I do think it's close. I like to think that there's some element of gamesmanship there from Joe and the team. It's the NBA Finals. It would be very Red Auerbach-esque to kind of fuck with the opposition a little bit and be a bit cagey with that information. That's what I'm going to tell myself to fall asleep tonight. But really, I don't know. Jake, what do you think?
I'll go last. Spoonie, percentage?
Okay, so I think he's going to be at 90%, and I think some of that 10% is going to be rust. 40 days is a really long time, and I'm also talking myself into him being totally fine, because the worst thing that can happen is him not being fine and Joe still playing him anyway, even though he's not contributing to winning, which is kind of what was happening with OG a little bit. OG only had a couple days to come back.
Right.
I mean,
and a hamstring is, they're different. I was just more speaking to
sure.
You knew right away as soon as he went first up and down, it's he doesn't have it.
It's going to be a big minute to open this game for sure.
Yeah.
So, but I think he's going to be pretty close to 100%. I hope.
So, health-wise, I'm at a 93, 94%. I think he's pretty close to just totally fine. So I'm putting all of this together. We've got that Woj report that he was targeting game 4. They go up 3-0, and it's if we play him in game 4, we have a 9-day layoff anyway. How much is him knocking rust off in game 4 actually going to help him for that game anyway? Let's just close this thing out, get him that rest. We're already here. Let's just do that. So Woj, not 100%, doesn't bat 1,000, but I mean that's pretty good. There was that Abby Chin's pre-game interview with Peyton Pritchard where she said, "Can you give us a little scoop on KP?" And Pritchard kind of smirked and was like, "Yeah, I think he's going to be ready to go soon." So tick that again. And then you talked about the gamesmanship. Joe Mazzulla and mental warfare, I think, are just like synonymous, right?
I like that angle.
And so I think like weaponizing time off, the Joe quotes. I mean, he's talking about like the journey's over when you die. Like,
listen, I don't like. Did you guys watch the episode 3 that the team?
Yes.
I mean, it goes like from 6 to midnight at the end, real quick. He is,
yeah, dude.
Joe has been delivering everything I need to light a candle and just, have some alone time.
You're damn right, dude. I can't wait to sit down. Wife's out at work. I'll just sit down and watching Joe Mazzulla interviews for the next fucking 6 hours.
Draw a bubble bath.
Yeah. But so,
do you guys think because they have been so, because usually every time there's an injury, they're very quick to put out the optimistic timeline, not that bad. Do you think there's anything to the fact that they have been treating this like the state secrets? Like there's no positive spin on it. There's no, it wasn't as, I think there was the initial like, it wasn't as bad as we thought because we all thought he popped his Achilles. But other than that, that's what leads me to believe it's like they must know he's okay because they're not trying to spin it to make me feel like he's okay. If anything, they've been doing the opposite. Mm-hmm. So maybe it is just Jedi.
That's right. That's right. And then the last piece is the Kristaps piece, where yesterday they're asking if he's 100%. And this was a classic, like, eye of the beholder test, where it's like if you watch him sit there and go, he's doing his Kristaps thing. He's like, oh, guys, I'm not 100%, but what is 100%? And I like to think I'm kind of, I'm a winker. Kristaps Porzingis, he's a winker. He runs around, he's winking at the
big
fans,
winker.
he's winking at. I'm a big winker. Not to be mistaken with wanker. Big winker.
You gotta be careful there.
Yeah. Big winker. Well, who's to say? Big winker.
Quotes,
winker. I am but a man, But so I think, man, he's good to go, man. I think now, health-wise, 94%. Rust-wise, I was watching Pod Maverick, who I think is doing a great job on covering both sides of this story. Someone put together like Kristaps Porzingis going back to his rookie year, how he plays after every single injury. It's not great numbers. So I think there's definitely that element of it. The good news is I think he's been ready for a while. So I think that like he's actually been like rhythm-wise could be closer. I do like that there's a couple of days off between each thing, but we can sit here all day and
just pray.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, if he is, let's say his health is fine and his play gives you 80% of regular season Porzingis, that is more than enough to be a deciding factor in the series, right? Like let's say he shoots 35% from 3 instead of 37, right? Let's say he's putting up, 15, 16 points a game. If the fact that he's healthy and his gravity is as normal as it was during the regular season, this is the cheat code. This is what made them that wagon. And then you look closer, you see the Mavs defense this year, horrific in post-ups. So, okay, now you're adding in a guy that is the most efficient post scorer in the NBA. Then you add in his spacing and what he's going to do to the rim protection and open that up. It's like everything that we hoped to see in September at this time of year will be unlocked if he gives you 80% of his regular season production.
Yeah, I think the spacing, especially against this Mavs team, will be huge. So here's a dumb hypothetical for you, Greeny. You can pick one of these two guys to shoot 45% from 3, and the other guy shoots, we'll say, like 30%. Who do you pick, Peyton Pritchard or Sam Hauser?
I think Sam Hauser.
Oh.
And the reason why is because I still think Pritchard is going to have matchup issues when he's going to get hunted at this time of the year. And I fear his ability to be on the floor in Kyrie minutes and or Luka minutes. With Hauser, you can hide him defensively on these wings for the Mavs. But if you have him at 45%, I think that's your trump card. It's been a brutal series and a half for Hauser, and I just think when he's making his threes, it just feels like that's your cherry on top, right? Like Pritchard can still make an impact shooting 30% from three with how he's developed as an offense initiator. His offensive rebounding is huge. I feel like Hauser's impact is very dependent on him making his open threes. So if you can give me 45% of that, I feel like you have to go with it just because his impact isn't as multidimensional.
Yeah, and he does hold up defensively. Like, obviously, we don't want him switched onto Luka time and time again. But if it happens to occur, a number of times throughout each game, I think we can live with that. And then, obviously, the three-point shooting, 45% feels like, I know it's not, it feels like his lifetime average. I guess it almost is.
It pretty much
if
is.
We can get back to that. Yeah. Then it's absolutely game-changing for us. Whereas Pritchard, you kind of touched on this, Screeny, like, there is other skill sets that he brings to the table, like just the ability to handle the ball and bring the ball up if they do.
Right, or like play in pace. Like, even if he's not shooting, I trust him way more as, a decision maker, a creator, playing fast, even if he's going to be mismatched defensively, like he's going to give you that effort. Hauser, it's like if he's not making his threes, and it's like, do you then go to more energy for Brissett? Do you play Cornet? I feel like Pritchard's rotation spot is set in stone no matter what.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it also is simple in the fact that, so on the playoffs so far, ironically, Pritchard is actually shooting 45.5% from three in the playoffs so far. Hauser at 33. But Pritchard's playing 21 minutes a game. Yeah, Pritchard's playing 21 minutes a game, and Hauser's playing 14.7. Hauser's shooting 3.4 3-point attempts versus Pritchard's 3.1. So purely from a volume perspective, if Hauser starts getting going, he'll play more minutes and he'll put up 10 threes and he can make 6. And then the game's over. That's the kind of the type of game that he can have. And so if he give me house dog. I saw today he's someone asked him about a shooting slump and he's like, yeah, just search my name up on YouTube, watch some highlights. And I'm like, yeah, man, chuck on the Washington Wizards film from later in the year where you're about to break the record, if not for fucking I don't even know. The coach behind you stepped on your foot. But
I also think this series is going to be a race to 115 points or more. That's it. So if you can get to 115, I feel like Dallas is going to struggle to match that. So in order to get that, they need to have guys produce like we saw all season long, right? You don't need to shoot 50% from three as a team, but you can't have your bench unit produce 4 total points and not make a three. That's just, it's not going to be good enough.
I think I would probably go Sam as well, and you guys kind of hit on it, but Pritchard can be a positive impact guy at 30% 3-point shooting. Obviously, he's not going to be a huge positive, and maybe he's a slight negative, but he can give you 10 minutes off the bench, and 30% shooting from him is not going to kill you as long as he's making the correct decisions and, trying really hard. Whereas Sam, his value is really dependent on the threes, and the volume's a great point, Jake, one I didn't think of. So, yeah, give me Hauser.
And he's so close too, right? His misses are 75% of the way down. And once he sees his first 2 drop, the floodgates are opening and he'll be back to his normal self.
Now, this is a question for the room. Did anything stand out to you guys from Media Day? We kind of had our first, in a while, influx of Celtics content, which is, I guess, the methadone to what we're normally used to and the heroin that is Celtics. Did anything stand out to you, Greeny? Any takeaways from Media Day that sort of changed the way you're thinking about Game 1 or the series?
Maybe this is because it's what I wanted to believe I was seeing and hearing, which, is possible. But they feel ready. They feel mature. They feel like when they made this trip in 2022, it was, we got over the hump. There was this excitement, sort of newness. Now I think they understand the brevity of the situation they're in. They understand what's at stake. And they feel ready for the moment, from Joe to how Tatum and Brown were talking, Holiday's calmness. I want to believe that they understand what this is not you're just happy to be there type finals. This is, you're either going to establish yourself as one of the greatest teams in NBA history, or it's the greatest choke in NBA history. That's it. That's what's at That's what's at stake. And I feel for Tatum and Brown, especially with all the shit they have to deal with, I think they are now ready. And part of that is just getting older and being a more mature person. And that's why I also put stock into everything we're hearing from Kyrie. I believe in that growth just because as someone who has aged, I'm not the same person at this age as I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So
not quite as old as Spoonie, but you have aged.
My hope is that
you'll never catch me.
But it's something that, you're going to have to see it to believe it. But the way that they were talking, how they just sounded more serious, I want to believe that this is their time.
Yeah, man. Jalen, go ahead, Jake.
Like the Missoula stuff for me is like I've been really buying into his like the mental side of things, and like everybody loved Ime because he would call Tatum and Jalen the P word or the B word, but like I think Joe is the actual mental alpha here, and I think he's going to have them mentally prepared for what they need to go do, and so I'm in on that, and every time he opens his mouth, I'm kind of ready to go. And then like the side funny thing was like Gary Washburn asked Tatum like, "You're like the most scrutinized player in the playoffs," and Tatum goes, "You think so?" And like there's a fake shot in the air. I'm like, "Yeah, I'd say so, dude." So that was fun. So yeah, I'm ready.
And forgive me if you guys disagree, but I feel like Missoula's biggest strength is his emotional intelligence. Like he gets the pressure. Like everyone always was screaming for Ime because he was a hard ass and got on guys. But there's something to be said about understanding that there are going to be nerves, understanding what that means and how you're going to react, and knowing that it's okay to feel that way, and it's how you use that moving forward is what matters, right? So I think his emotional intelligence is what has garnered that relationship with the players, right? Like first thing he does after they win, goes over and tells Tatum and Brown he loves them. He talks about embracing the pressure and what it means to be in this position as a Celtic. And I think being from Rhode Island, he knows and understands what this franchise is about. And I think that's starting to bleed into the rest of the roster.
Yeah, and on sort of the mindset, Jalen said he's watched the finals from 22 4 or 5 times, and also Game 7 against the Heat last year, which is like, dude, you are clinically insane. But also, like, awesome. He can just watch his worst moments of his entire career, and his takeaway was like, you can learn something from everything. So like, that's how dialed in these dudes are. Like, they're going back to film where it's like literally Game 7 against Miami is probably one of the worst things that's ever happened to Jaylen Brown in his life. Like, if professionally,
was it the best?
Right.
Or was it the worst so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're unpacking some important stuff here. Sorry, go ahead. Speak.
Right. Yeah, no, but it's just like indicative of like he's chosen to turn it into a positive for him and something he can draw from. And I think, like you were saying, Greeny, there's just a lot of maturity in that approach. I will never watch those again.
No, never.
But I'm glad Jaylen Brown does.
I haven't watched Game 7 2010. You can pay me to watch that shit.
There's a great comment in the chat here from T, who says, I'm a clinical psychology trainee, and I'm unironically and consistently impressed with how much Joe uses evidence-based mindfulness and therapeutic strategies, which is that's so good. We're going to come back in a moment, and Jake's going to run us through a 2022/2024 finals comparison. But first, here's a quick word from our sponsors over at Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're locked in. The finals means more on Prize Picks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars that you won't find anywhere else. I've been cooking Spoonie and Ben by hammering more on Jaylen Brown points and Jason Tatum rebounds. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right. So we're all, especially at least we've all established we're all looking for ways to sleep better tonight. And so I was thinking about like the 2022 finals versus the 2024 finals. And like that's been a reason for a lot of like, I think, casual analysts to point to why the Celtics aren't going to win this game. And I'll start here, Greeny. Firstly, the Warriors were favored in that matchup. But we'll start at the top. Jason Tatum versus Steph Curry. The best player in the series, right? That's like kind of the angle you want to take if you want to really like go in on the Mavs in this series. It's like Luka is the best player in the series. I think that's like the non-green beer drinking way to look at this. But like Tatum versus Steph, the gap between Tatum and Steph in that series compared to Luka and Tatum in this series, I think I'll throw it to you what you think of that. But just I hate to remind people of this. Tatum in that series, 21, 7 and 7, 36.7% from the field, 45% from three, which is always funny, 65% from the free throw line, and 3.8 turnovers per game. Like he was like disastrously bad for Tatum, and they almost won the series. And Steph Curry was like peak of his powers level series. So throw it to you, Greeny. That's kind of the framing to start the comparison off here.
It's tough because I think what gave Steph that gap, in my opinion, was his experience, right? Like he had been at that stage before. So from a talent perspective, I think Luka is every bit as much of a killer and a problem when it comes to limiting his production as you had with Steph Curry. He's not going to kill you with, the insane Steph three-point shooting, but the impact is going to be just as devastating. Where I think it flips is, now granted, he's been a pro since he was like 12 years old. But when it comes to an NBA Finals, the experience factor of the best players has now flipped, right? We've gone through the pain. We've gone through the wars. We know what that is like. And I think the finals, even if you have been in big conference finals games or you've been in big regular season games, you really only know what the finals are like until you play in it. And that's true for fans, like the nerves leading up to it, for the coaching, everything is magnified to an insane level. So I think that gap is closer. Where I think there's still this best player debate, this gap debate is Luka has the ability to raise the ships of everybody else better than I think Steph does, right? Like Steph you're not seeing Steph have 10 rebounds, 13 assists. Like his gravity is more, everyone's focused on his shooting, running off screens. It's just a different animal. With Luka, it's like death by paper cuts. It's him being patient, getting into the paint and manipulating your defense with the ball. I feel like Steph manipulates your defense off ball. So that's my biggest fear, is that the way that he plays is going to be conducive to these high pressure games because he doesn't really rely on variance 3-point shooting, right? Like even on his, 35% from the floor games, he's still rebounding, he's still passing, he's still making an impact. He's getting to the line. Like Steph Curry is the most disrespected superstar, maybe next to Nikola Jokic in terms of getting to the line. Well, now you're about to face a guy that's going to get to the line between 9 and 12 times a game. It's just a different animal.
Yeah, here's the thing on Luka, and I think it does speak to inexperience. He's averaging 4 turnovers a game in the playoffs. Like, you can turn him over, and he's going to have the ball a lot, so obviously he's going to average a lot of turnovers, and I don't think that's, like, really impacting how effective he's being, but I think it does speak to, like, the lights can be bright sometimes, and you can get into his pocket, or you can pick off passes, or he tries something crazy, and it's kind of a bad decision. I think if you want to say Luka and Steph are even, I don't know. Like Steph just feels like a force of nature, like not a basketball player, in a way that I feel like is hard to describe. And I don't feel that way about Luka. But assuming they're even, I think this version of Tatum is just considerably better than the version we got in 22. Like he has seen everything that a defense will throw at him. And I think the 22 finals were a huge learning experience for him because they were doing some crazy shit, Golden State was, and he could not figure it out. He probably should have averaged like 12 assists in that playoffs if he knew what he was doing and reading the defense correctly. So I just don't think the Mavs have the defensive personnel or the schemes to throw Tatum off his game like he was in that finals. And I think he's a lot stronger too. So he's not so reliant on some of these like wonky floaters that are contested. Like he'll just put Kyrie in the post and go get 2 or get fouled. So I think the gap is much smaller. Yeah. And he's healthy.
He's healthy. Mm-hmm.
You go. You haven't gone yet.
This is great live podcasting. Yeah, like, I mean, one thing with Luka and the lack of experience is like he's bringing along with him someone with some finals experience, a lot of finals experience in Kyrie Irving. And I wonder how much that sort of added tutelage of having Kyrie along with him helps him in comparison to JT, who didn't really have a similar mentor from a finals experience perspective going into 2022. The other comparison is I remember going into the 22 finals, we all thought, at least as fans, that Steph Curry would be super vulnerable defensively and he'd be someone that we could target and go at. And we kind of did to our detriment. Like he didn't actually end up folding defensively as much as we all expected. And here we are on the eve of the finals. And one of the bigger talking points has been that Luka is, a beta male, for lack of a better term, defensively, and someone that we can go at ad nauseum. And yet all the talk over the last couple of weeks has been he's actually held up pretty well defensively. Maybe that's not actually a strategy that the Celtics can go for. So comparison-wise, there are some similarities there as well, Jake.
Yeah, well, just the offense between then and now, like I remember going back and watching that finals for like a Tatum video. Like a lot of people remember Wiggins as being like the guy that shut Tatum down. Tatum actually did a good job of like kind of beating Wiggins off the dribble. It was Draymond, man. Like the amount of times that like Tatum just couldn't make a layup over anyone. There's one play that sticks out in my mind forever is like Tatum like on a fast break, he like does like a half weak Euro to the left and just like throws the ball over his head. Like he was so mentally and physically exhausted by the time we got to that series. Like this Celtics offense, it is crazy going back and look at that those stats from that series. Like Al Horford shot 62%.
62% from the floor and the field. Like how do you lose the finals?
I know.
Because I just looked at that the other day because I was like, part of me thinks he was only really good in that game 1. But then I saw it's like, damn, he shot 62% and we let him down. Like,
I know. Yeah, dude, we let him down. We did. But like, Rob Williams, we needed him. Like without Rob, he technically played in 6 of those games, but like he was helpful and healthy for a third or 25%. And so that team started to get pretty thin really quick. Like Grant Williams, Derek White was not the same. And so like you're looking for ways to compare. Like Jaylen Brown is just a completely different player now than he was then. Tatum, just his floor. Derek is so much better. I mean, Marcus Smart, ironically, again, shot 41% from 3 in the finals. Our guy, like, it was really Tatum. And like that was like if he was able to play to the level that he played through the playoffs, they probably win the series. And so I think that Warriors team with Draymond healthy in that season, they were like a 60-win team. They like had an elite defense. Steph was at the peak of his powers. Draymond still at the peak of his powers as one of the best defenders like of all time. And like they just caught magic in a fucking bottle like across the board. Plus the experience piece of the Celtics not quite being ready. Like that's what I'm looking at and that's why they're favored. That's why they're like heavy favorites in this series is like I feel like the discussion around the series is more like the series is even, but I think like you lay it out compared to like that team where you can make an argument that Warriors team was better than this Mavs team and they just squeaked past the Celtics. And like this Celtics team is so much better. Obviously you got the X factor with Porzingis, but this team, considering Rob's health in that series, like this team is like a lot better and a lot has to do with Tatum and Jaylen.
Now, you guys may not remember this, but because I'm neurotic and was watching this at, ungodly hours, during the All-Star break, I don't know, it was like during the, the slam dunk, in between the events, they had Jaylen and Draymond on the set, on the inside of the NBA set. And they asked him about, the finals. And Jaylen, the first thing he brought up was, when they played the Warriors brought it up to a level that the Celtics were not ready. A level of force is what I think he said, that the Celtics were not ready for. And then he smirked. He said, but we're going to be ready for it this time. And then Chuck buried Draymond and said, well, he's not going to be there, which was, ultimately true. But I think that gave you the insight of they got punched in the mouth and they were like, holy crap, what is this? This is the level it takes to become a champion. The only way you learn that is to go through it. LeBron lost his first final. Like, he went through those struggles. Larry Bird lost finals. It's like you have to go through and lose at this stage to understand that level of force. And the fact that Jalen A admitted it and B was like, we're going to be ready this time, told me like, okay, they're ready to take that lead.
Yeah, Al was even talking about in Media Day earlier today that last time for Media Day, it was all a bit overwhelming. All the added press and added attention sort of took them out of their zone a little bit. And this time he looked super relaxed, super appreciative of just the moment, and that they were ready for those bright lights of Media Day and all that added attention and ramp up to the finals. Even just their approach going into the fucking Media Day, let alone the game, seems, approached with cooler heads. And more maturity and poise and all of that. So really like clutching at straws here, but hopefully that's a good sign as to how they show up in game one. Anything else on this, Jake? I know you've cooked up another amazing segment to end the show. Anything else on the
well, I don't know. Does anyone have any like other comparisons? Like I've found myself just going back to that because I'm like, they were so fucking close last time, and I'm like, okay, what's the difference? And there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at the Mavs' entire run is very reminiscent to the Celtics run, right? Like, they turned it on over the last, 30-ish games of the year. Their defense went up a level. Their superstar is 24 years old, making his first finals. They have a head coach that, people don't really, believe in, but has got complete buy-in on the roster, just like everybody bought in with Ime. It's a team that, plays a similar style to how the Celtics, or to how the Celtics made their run of timely three-point shooting from role players, lockdown defense, and elite play from, their backcourt, their stars. So they're very similar. They feel like the 22 Celtics, in all honesty. It's like we feel like the 22 Warriors where, we had a fairly easy, quote unquote, easy path. We're rested. We're in the finals. We have the experience. They're there for the first time, outside of Kyrie. But even if you just go back to their regular season close, I think they lost 2 games over their last 20. So it's very similar to that second half Celtics push.
Yep. Good wrap up there. All right. So we're going to play a game called Do You Believe? And I'll frame it with this little piece I picked up from episode 2, I believe, from the All In documentary that is just unbelievable.
I think experience is everything. I think being able to experience the ups and downs and going through struggles, all that kind of plays into how you grow and having those opportunities to grow so that when you get to the tough spot, you'll be able to prepare.
Richard just dribbling the ball at the half-court line. Long three. Oh, my. Hey, Richard. And look, he's talking stuff. Oh, I hate that.
All right. Do you believe? We're going to run through. So, going into the finals, it's like, who do you know, who do you believe in to the utmost degree is going to be ready to meet this moment? We'll start. I'm going to start with my guy who I'm 100% sure in, and it's Jaylen Brown.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the only answer I feel like.
He's the. I think there's two. I think there's two guys, but I'll start with Jaylen. And my big example, Denver Nuggets game in Denver. The way that he played in that game, he had 41 points. He ended up missing all those free throws, but the mentality that he brought to that game, where it was I'm not letting them have a chance to even get close to kind of accessing some of my weaknesses. I'm bringing this fight to them from the jump, and I'm not stopping, and I'm going to give us a chance to win all the way to the end. He got that steal on Jamal Murray. Tatum fucked up the fast break. So Jaylen Brown is the number one guy for me that I know is going to be ready to meet the moment, Greeny.
Yeah, I'd say Jaylen 1. Number 2 for me is probably Bald Derek. I believe in the bald head. I believe in the transformation. He's so consistent in terms of he's another guy that does not feel afraid from the moment. He's been one of their best clutch scorers, clutch shooters all season long. He had the big, obviously huge corner three in game 4. I trust that his rim protection will show up. His energy level will show up. I don't know. I've believed in the bald head since August. I'm going to stay that course in June.
Derek's worrying me a little bit, man. I mean, he kind of got it together in the Indy series, but he had like a half a dozen games where he
believe in it. I'm telling you.
All right.
This has nothing to do with the fact, maybe it does, that me and his dad DM each other like 35 times a day. So I might be a little biased on it. I may be kind of projecting, but I think this is it. Remember, he is still playing for that, extension. So this is the, the TV deal is about to be $78 billion. You're about to cut me a check for like $250.
Yeah,
I think my number one's
looks, man. Sorry, go ahead, Spoons.
No, I was going to move on from Derek, so go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's going to get his looks. If you just think logically about how the Mavs are going to match up and defend against the Celtics, like Derek White is going to get lanes to the bucket, especially with our 5-out offense. The Mavs have been packing the paint all playoffs. They're not going to have the choice to do that in this series. Derek is going to be the least focal point of their offense, you would think, logically. Jake shakes his head. So at least initially.
No.
He's going to get his opportunities. Can he convert on them? I would love more insight into the Richard White DMs, Greeny, to build my confidence there. But like, he hasn't necessarily been consistent in hitting on those opportunities all series. He certainly has throughout the course overall of the season. So you've got to think it's the finals. He's ready. We've talked about all the readiness and experience going into the series. He probably knows he's going to get more of a chance than previous series. I need to believe, just to get back to the catalyst for the segment here, Jake, I need to believe that Derek White is going to hit those. But just going back to Jalen very quickly, like I have been walking around in my like better, more sane mental health states, walking around with this air of like Jaylen Brown's going to fucking get this shit done, man. Like he's had that air about him all season. He just seems like the alpha in the room. I don't know why I keep going to this alpha beta male stuff. I probably don't normally talk like
alpha
that.
time.
But he has that air about him of dominance, and I truly feel like he's going to dominate this series. So I certainly believe in Jaylen Brown. I'm also want to believe in Derek White, but I'm gonna need to see a little bit more, I think.
So I started when you said Derek at first, Greeny, I was like, I'm not sure, but then I started going through it. I'm like, Game 6 in Miami last year, the tip in. The corner three in Indiana, like how many times this season did he hit the clutch shot? One of the few games that Tatum missed against the Raptors in Boston. It was a close game. Derek White's like kind of cooking. He loses the ball, like the top right wing. Gary Trent's guarding him. He like fumbles it and he just like corrals it, takes a step back, bangs it, game, and then Tatum gets up off his seat wearing like this leopard print like overcoat and just like just an alpha point right at Derek White's soul. And like Derek White's just come up so big in so many moments. Going back to 2022 finals, huge in that game 1. I trust his mental approach. I trust how he views his role and this game and what it takes to be successful. He talks all the time about staying present and ready in the moment and just trying to make a difference. And I don't know, there's something about it. And then you factor in the additional 5 points, the 5 power points he gets from being bald, that I'm ready to believe in it. I do think, like we talked about the Joe Mazzulla mental stuff, like if anyone on the team that's probably had the biggest impact, I would say, has been Derek, because Jalen, I'm not sure how much Jalen really needs someone to like help him with his mental strength and grit to like keep working on weaknesses and stuff like that. Like, it's just the type of guy that he is. But Derek constantly been that guy that people have talked about wanting to encourage him and encourage him to be aggressive. So you felt that from Joe. I think he's going to be ready. I'm surprised no one said Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday, if you would ask me before the playoffs, would have not been high on the list. That's especially if you would ask me 2 games in or 3 games into the first round, you would not have been high on my list. But since then, dude, the champion, he's the champion. Team USA fucking loves Drew. Like, everybody loves Drew. The play on Andrew Nembhard, he's been making all the big shots. He's been so good defensively. I love that we've got this guy who's been through it on the championship team, got it done before. Drew Holiday has actually filled me with a ton of confidence in a way that I did not think he was going to, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 8 months of the year being terrified of his playoff shooting. I spent the first 3 or 4 games of the Miami series apoplectic, almost to the point of like, oh my God, his true shooting percentage is 32% through the first 3 games, but he figured it out. And I think for me, that's maybe my only hesitation is, does that turn back into a pumpkin at the worst possible time like it did for White in 2022? Or has it gotten over that hump? And now with Porzingis back, there's even less pressure on him to shoot well, and he can just do all the little things and make his corner threes. But I don't know. He is a good bet just because he has been so freaking solid. But in the back of my mind, I am still nervous that it turns a little bit back into a pumpkin.
Yeah, one thing that stuck out to. So we keep doing this, Spoonie. I blame the mindset going into the finals, and we're completely discombobulated from our normal flow. You go, and then I'll jump in.
I was going to say they're probably going to hide Luka on Drew or Kyrie. I mean, that's really their only option. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities. And the Mavs give up like 11 or 12 corner threes a game, and the Celtics give up 6. So they give up double what we do. And Drew Holiday shoots 60% from the corner. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities to kind of take sections of the game over. But yeah, I totally believe in Drew at this point. He has convinced me since game 3 of that Cleveland series. I'm all in on the Drew train.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me watching that March 1st game against the Mavs, like the last time we played them, was how different Drew looked. Like he just didn't have the same defensive prowess, I thought, in that game that he's sort of ramped up and demonstrated in these playoffs so far. So if Drew holds his form there, the Mavs are going to see a version of Drew that's different to what they've seen earlier in the season. So I've got to believe
I think he was consciously holding back because I think he's a guy that has been there that said they didn't trade for me for a random game in March. They traded for me for June, and the way that he's turned it up on both ends kind of shows me it's like maybe he was really only going like 85% during the year, and this is the holiday that Brad knew he was bringing in.
Yeah, I need to subscribe to that. Sorry, go ahead, Jake. Because there's one person we haven't brought up yet.
There's one person. There's a couple we haven't
He's
brought
my
up.
number one. He's my number one who we haven't brought up.
I was like, is it Al Horford? Because I know he's going to be ready to go. Look, are there going to be some moments where he gets switched on to Luka and Kyrie that don't look awesome? Yes. Yep. But my mantra has turned up through the playoffs, partly because Porzingis got injured, but like it's just always an Al Horford series. Mm-hmm. It's always an Al Horford series. And more often than not, pretty much like every series except for like last year, he steps up. We already talked about him shooting 62% from 3 in the finals back in 2022. In all the big games in the playoffs this season, closeout game 5 against Cleveland, 6 for 13, another 7 from 12 in the Pacers series. He hits that 3 off the Tatum behind the back pass in the corner. They've got him all the rest he could possibly ask for in this run. Adam Silver has literally designed the schedule of the NBA Finals specifically for Al Horford. Al Horford is going to be ready to go.
And I don't think it should be understated. 2 years ago, it didn't really feel like the end was near with Al, right? They played with their food. They extended series. It's been the exact opposite this run. And I think that's everybody knows. Like we're well into the back 9. Like this is, you might only have 1 or 2 more runs with Al before he just rides off into the sunset. And I think that has helped everybody take things more seriously. Like when he threw that ball off, who was it? Dean Wade in the Cleveland series. And it's like, if this dude who's 50 years old is going to be playing like this, like we have no excuse. And I think the fact that he has had 2 all-star breaks during this finals run has been all the difference. And I just think, Tatum and Brown, like they know, like it is on them to get this done for Al Horford. And I think after not doing it in 2022, a rested Al is a lethal Al. And I think he's going to have his support of it's time for us. It's like that meme where like in the early part of the run, he was Splinter holding the hands of all the little baby turtles. Now they're all grown up and they're holding the hand of old ass Splinter and they're going to carry him over the finish line.
Please.
So Fred in the chat says Dingus, which very clever, dude, is made of wet paper. Everybody knows it. We don't need Porzingis to beat the Mavs because we have fucking Al Horford, dude.
That's right.
He doesn't have weaknesses. He might have some bad possessions where he switches on to Luka and Kyrie. He's also going to have some really damn good ones too. And that's all you can expect out of a center. Never mind a 38-year-old center. Plus the way how smart he is. His rebounding has been pretty solid all playoffs too. And defensively, man, he's just been perfect. So I'm excited to watch Al. Please get that man a ring. 6 seasons in a trophy, boys. Please.
And to that point, he may be wet paper, but it's actually paper mache. So then once it dries, it's hard as shit.
There we go.
Well, take that.
9 days to dry.
Propaganda we're cooking. Hell yeah. Yeah, look, the image of Al clutching the Larry O.B. covered in champagne, weeping is what I crave so much in my life. Am I crazy, or have we not mentioned Tatum as part of this segment yet? Because
I just didn't want to jinx it. To be honest.
Look, man. I think that's he's kind of the X factor a little bit. I know he's going to be awesome defensively, awesome rebounding. It's just there's so much pressure on him. I feel it. I think he's going to have a good series. I think there's a world where he has the series, where he has the fucking series, and every question about Tatum is now irrelevant, and he's just stamped as a top 5 guy. And then he'll just be playing free for the rest of his career once he gets this thing done. But I think out of anyone, I think he might want it a tiny bit too much. Yes, exactly. Whereas can he just bottle up Jalen's mentality and just the no fear thing? I think
that's where the 22 finals experience comes into, because I think that's how he played in 22, is he was almost pressing too much. Now that he's gone through it and that he's struggled, and he knows I just don't know what they're going to do. What wing defender do they possibly throw at him? He's going to back you into the paint and he's going to force rotations. And once that happens, it's death. And if you don't switch on him, I don't know. I feel like he's more of an intelligent offensive player now. He's bigger, he's healthy, and he understands the importance. And I just don't know schematically. If you look at all of his games against the Hornets, when they had PJ Washington on him, he averaged almost 45 a game. So it's Derek Jones Jr. is not thick enough. He doesn't have the strength. Who is the wing defender that is going to limit either Jalen or Tatum from getting whatever they want? And we know if you are a team that cannot prevent the Jays from getting into the paint, you will not beat them. That's it. That's the crux of everything.
Yeah, of all the do you believes, I need to believe that this will be the series for Jason Tatum. The stage is so perfectly set, especially going up against Luka Doncic, for Tatum to come out, with all of the haters circling him and all of the media narratives sort of going anti-Tatum in their angles, for him to come out, shoot 40% from 3, be dangerous in his pull-ups, hit them at a potently high level, manipulate the defense accordingly, get into the paint as a result of that. This feels like a season where we've been spoiled. It feels like to a large degree we've kind of had everything we've wanted this year except for that. And so could we just get that? And then obviously the title as well would be fucking awesome as well. So it kind of feels like we're due. Obviously there's no analysis involved in that angle, but this is what we've become in this ramp up to the final spoon.
Yeah. I think the inflection point for Tatum with me is you're right, Greeny. He's going to get into the post. He's going to draw help, or he's going to get the defense in rotation. It is his decision in that moment that it's going to dictate whether he has a great series or not. Is he forcing up fall away jumpers, or is he making the right pass? I feel like he can totally pick this Mavs defense apart with his passing, because they're going to help off the weak side. Those corner shooters are going to be open. And if he's drawing help and making the right read every time, he's going to get them out of that defense. Then they're going to have to play us straight up, and then we can just march our way to the rim. And that all starts, I think, with Tatum making those decisions early when he draws the help. So, but I believe 100%. I have 110% confidence interval in Tatum. I think he's ready for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Spoonie, is the not forcing it. And that's the superpower of this team, is that obviously we want Tatum to have this 40 again. Please just replicate your 3-point percentage from the finals in 2022, and then the series is over. I think that's it's just over. But if we get the 26, 10, and 6, even if the 3-point shot's only 30%, as long as the field goal percentage is still up there, as long as he's still getting to the line, as long as he's averaging 6 assists to the 2 turnovers per game, the overall game that he's played in the playoffs so far is like all I think you need, because if he's playing that way, making those decisions, getting the offense moving, the floor of this team night to night is so high, and then you're just going to have the nights where they get hot, and when he's playing well, there's just no answer. So
I don't even think you need to be selfish and say 40.
No.
Just shoot league average. Shoot 34, 35. I mean, you forget he's shooting 29% from three. Like,
it's really bad.
Be slightly below league average, and that's an additional 6 to 9 points a game. Well, now you're talking about him averaging in the mid-30s. And if he's averaging in the mid-30s, they're going to be putting up 120, which is the magic number. So just be league average.
All right. I think we've done everything we can. It's up to the fellas now. We've done all we can do. You can find Greeny on Twitter or X at StillGreeny, along with all his work over at Barstool Sports. Greeny, always a blast having you on, man. Thanks very much.
Listen, they win tomorrow. I'll see you fellas for game 2.
There we go.
Let's go. 4 freaking more to go. That's it.
Come on.
Love to hear it. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Whatever you can do to help build up our platform here is massively appreciated. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. I hope everyone gets some sleep tonight. Until next time, go Celtics.
I love